Hello, my name is Quinn, and I want to tell you about the time my mother and stepfather got a divorce. It was a really hard time for me, and I don't like to think about it often, but it's something that I feel like opening up about. Maybe then I can move on from it. When I was really young, like young enough not to even remember his face, my father left us. This left me in the care of my mother, Rebecca. She was a nice mother, but distant. We didn't do normal mother and daughter things. But I guess that's because she really didn't know what she was supposed to do with me. She had me when she was in her late teens and was still learning how to be a mother. After my father left, I think my mom did her best, but we were barely getting by. I grew up understanding that we needed to save anything that we could and always be thankful for the little food that we had. It was hard, and sometimes we didn't have heat at home, so we'd bundle up tight, wearing winter clothes at night. My mom was distant for the most part. Never mean to me, but showing affection wasn't really her strongest quality. So, by the time I turned 9 and was old enough to look after myself, that's what I did. I'd make my own meals, do my own homework, and even look after my mom when she got home from work. It wasn't a great life, but I got used to it. Then it all changed. My mom started dating a new guy, Billy. She didn't bring him round at first, but when I finally met him, I saw that he looked a bit older than her. Though my mom was happy, so I was happy too. A couple of months went by, and their dating finally tipped over into marriage. I didn't think anything of it back then. I didn't know that their relationship was moving fast. I just saw how happy they were and that they loved each other. After the marriage, we moved into his house. It was amazing. I had my own room, which was bigger than our old living room. I ran around and was so happy. Billy even took me out to the store with him and Mom so that I could pick out my own bed. It was big with fairies decorated on the headboard. Then we went toy shopping and out to the amusement park. When it was just me and Mom, I wasn't able to do all of these things, so having a family day actually brought me to tears. Seeing me crying, Billy picked me up and carried me through the park, showing me other games and buying me a funnel cake. It was amazing. Years passed, and I loved our new family. My stepdad and I grew really close. Every time he'd have free time from work, we would all do something as a family. We'd go to the park and sit around for a picnic, go to the planetarium where he'd point out all of the planets and constellations, telling me about them. Billy told me once he never had a family growing up, so doing all of these things with us was what he dreamed about doing when he was a kid. I couldn't ask for a better father. Everything seemed so perfect. But that changed around the time I was 14. As me and my stepdad grew closer, I thought nothing could break our bond. But one day, after I got home from school, I saw my mom crying in the kitchen. I walked up to her and asked what was wrong. She hugged me tight until the sobbing stopped. Then she told me about my real stepdad. She told me how Billy would act nice and everything was okay when I was around, but when I left, that's when his real personality would come out. He would yell at her if anything was out of place in the house, then belittle her by calling her names and telling her how worthless she was without him. I couldn't believe it. With each word that my mom said, I could feel my heart break. I thought the world of Billy. He was a person that I looked up to and wanted to be like when I grew up. A nice, caring person who does things for others without hesitation. All of it was a lie. My mother wiped her face, begging me not to tell him what she said. She didn't want to lie to me, but she was also stuck. Not knowing what to do, I smiled at her and promised. Over the next couple of weeks, I didn't even want to be around Billy anymore. I would make any excuse I could to get out of family events. And when he suggested we spend time like we used to, I declined. I could tell that he was confused, but I didn't care. I didn't want anything to do with someone who would treat my mom like that. One day, Billy decided to insist on us going out for a surprise. When we arrived at the amusement park, I lost it. I could remember all of the good times I felt originally when I was a little kid, and to be brought back and reminded of who he really was infuriated me. I told them that I didn't want to be there. Billy put on a smile and said if I give it a try, he'd buy me all the funnel cakes that I wanted. I screamed that I didn't want anything from him and turned away. My mom calmed me down, and I decided to go along with it for her. Days later, my mom came to me and told me that she was seeking a divorce. She said that she couldn't put up with it anymore, and that she didn't want me to be angry anymore either. I was happy for her. She asked me to sit in on the divorce proceedings and comment on my stepdad. She told me it would help and make sure he doesn't try to take advantage of her. I was happy to agree. I wanted to help my mom no matter what. One night, I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs for a glass of water and saw my mom stepping in her shoes. It was pretty late, so I was wondering where she was headed. Before I could ask, though, she was out the back door. It was weird, but maybe she needed some fresh air away from Billy. It was the only thought that came to mind. I looked out the window, but she was gone. I thought she may have just stepped out for a bit, but it looked like she went for a walk instead. My mom must have really been stressed out about the divorce, or at least that's what I thought. The next night, I couldn't sleep again. This time, it was out of curiosity. Where did my mom go? And was she really okay? I snuck out of bed and down the stairs. To my surprise, there was my mom again, putting on her shoes and out the door. I had to know what she was doing. With my slippers on, I walked out the door and saw my mom creeping around to the side of the house. She was walking fast, like she was determined, and I tried hard to keep up. That's when I saw it. My mom was walking down the sidewalk until she came across a parked car. She opened the door and got inside the passenger side. There was a man waiting. As she sat down, she gave him a passionate kiss before they drove off. I was shocked as I walked back to the house. The next morning, I woke up and it was like nothing happened. My stepdad was sitting at the kitchen table, my mom was standing by the fridge, and they both greeted me. I tried to forget what I saw, but I couldn't. I even tried to come up with something that would make it make sense, but nothing did. I couldn't get it out of my head and I needed answers. The next time my mom got up and went into the other room, I grabbed her phone and checked the messages from the time she left the house. In the texts, there was one number from that time, a guy named William. I read through her backlog and my jaw almost hit the floor. There were texts from months ago, all talking about my dad, me, and her life. It talked about how she was using my stepdad for his money and how she was using me to control him. She knew that we were close, so she made up a fake story to drive us apart. The newest texts talked about the money she'd get from the divorce and how she couldn't wait to be with the mystery man. I was sick. I knew I didn't have much time, so forwarded the most important text to my phone and deleted the evidence. I couldn't believe what my mom was doing, but I didn't know what to do about it. Even though she used me, lied to me, and tried to manipulate me, she was still my mother, the woman who raised me. So even though I wasn't proud of it, I kept quiet. For the next couple of weeks, I played the nice daughter. My mom was still faking pain from how my stepdad treated her, and I kept my distance from him for a different reason now, because I was ashamed. Then came the sit-down. My mom and I got dressed up to head to the attorney's office. By the time we made it to the office, I was a little nervous. I knew why I was there, but it was still going to be hard. When we walked into the room, my stepdad was shocked to see me. I guess my mom wanted it to be a surprise, but I sat down, trying not to look at him. The proceedings started, with the lawyers breaking down everything each side wanted. Unsurprisingly, my mom was asking for a lot. Then it was her turn to talk, and each word made me cringe. She started with the same basic lies that she told me, but it was what she said after that I couldn't believe it. She said how he beat her, wouldn't let her out of his sight, held her prisoner in the house, and so many horrible lies. I could feel my patience start to burst as I looked over to my stepdad, who looked astounded and sad. I tried tugging on her dress to get her to stop, but she brushed me off. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and screamed, "Shut up!" She turned to me, saying how they needed to hear the truth, and that's when I lost it. I pulled out my cell phone and pulled up the text from my mom's phone. "If you want to hear the truth, how about this?" I started talking about how I read the messages and that I knew what she was really doing. I could see her going pale. By the end, there was not much else to say. My mom was a proven liar, and my stepdad's attorney had a field day with the evidence. When it was all over, I walked up to my stepdad and apologized about how I treated him. I felt tears on my face, thinking that he would hate me, but he just gave me a hug. He apologized to me for having to go through all of that alone. Sadly, that was the last time I saw him. When the divorce went through, my mom was kicked out, and I followed. We moved into a small apartment far away from him. I knew my stepdad asked to be in my life, but my mom refused to let me have anything to do with him. I was hurt, but I don't regret what I did, and I certainly don't regret what happened. Even though I don't see my stepdad anymore, I wish him nothing but the best. It was only for a short time, but he was the best dad I could ask for. What did you think of my story? Please share with me your thoughts in the comments section below.